Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 1115 Northeast 114th Avenue here in Portland. I describe everything as if you're standing in the street looking at the facing the front of the house. We are down in the basement right now. We are in the, if you're facing the house from the street, you got two bathrooms down here. We're in the right side bathroom. Down on the floor here you have a big steel plate that covers a backflow valve. The ABS backflow valve, it looks like 3-inch pipe, although most likely we're going to Y connect in directly into 4-inch pipe, would be my assumption here. Visually speaking, it's a little bit trickier to eyeball diameter changes when you're starting out in a backflow valve. You just don't get the same visual effect. Especially Y connect like this, it's a lot harder to tell if the diameter just switched. Although right here, there it is right there. We're going from 3 to 4-inch ABS. And it actually appears, it almost looks like you've got another clean out down here under the floor. There might be one under the carpet runner right in front of me. Anyway, zeroed the foot counter out right as we dropped in there. Super, super clean line. That is precisely how you want your sewer line to look right there. Fabulous looking sewer line thus far as cleanliness goes anyway. Got a little bit of standing water here, and it's just that. It's a little bit, very minor. See, there's not a speck of buildup to hardly speak of there. I would not expect to see much anyway with a belly that tiny, not unless the line was heavily abused. And then we just transitioned there over to 4-inch 3034 PVC. We're going to take a look at this joint on the way out here. We do have an offset there. We'll revisit that here in a moment when the line's drained out. We'll take a look at how tall the lip is. My camera went over it with very little issue. The other thing to be concerned about too is the joint potentially being compromised and open to the ground, where you get a progressive situation where that joint gets worse and worse over time. If you get a joint that's exposed to the ground that starts sucking groundwater and dirt through it, it can hydro erode the support around the sewer line, the dirt in general around the line, and cause the line to settle progressively. So, anyway, we'll take another look at that here in just a minute. There's the main here at 65 feet. We're going to go locate that really quick here while the line drains out, and then we'll take a better look at everything as we come back. Very clean line. There's hardly any buildup in it, which is I'm liking. Alright, I located the camera head successfully. Line terminates on 114th Avenue. The line here it meanders around a little bit, but from the clean out to the main lateral, the line runs a fairly straight shot overall. Line basically lines up at about the middle of the front of the house, essentially. Kind of gives you an idea of where the trajectory it takes. Goes out to the street through the front yard area. It doesn't go into the driveway or anything like that, which is really nice. Especially in a scenario like this where we have an offset joint here that may very well need some repair work done to it. Alright, all the 6-inch 3034 looks great. Most, if not all, of that is actually city responsibility. Looks great either way. Big hard dive. I was taking a depth out there. My locator was struggling a little bit to get a reading, and now that I see how significant that drop is coming back out, I was getting around 13 feet or so deep. It's way the heck down there. This line already comes out of the house at probably a good 7 feet deep, I'll bet. So, alright, so we're at the offset here, and that is one I am indeed going to recommend a repair on. That is pretty wonky there, and it also that joint there is shifted and pulled apart enough that there is a very high likelihood that's exposed to the ground at this point. You've also lost a considerable amount of diameter, at least an inch. And you've got a lip on both sides for things to run into here. So my camera lens, it's kind of a weird way this thing shifted. It's bizarre looking. It's not typically how most offsets occur. But you've got about a 1 inch tall lip there on the left side and about a 1/2 inch or so, 3/4 of an inch offset lip there on the right side. So, and the other big concern here is progressiveness of this. Is it going to continue to shift over time? One little old lady living in the house is probably not going to be something that causes a problem because of the low volume nature of a small household like that. But you put any amount of people in here, and you do indeed run the risk of that causing a blockage there. And also the potential for this thing to continuously shift over time. The other part we can't see is if we could come backwards up the line and look at the back side of that joint, you could potentially have a joint over top there that's also compromised potentially. That's pretty torqued. So you've got some settling that's taking place at this length of pipe here. So I'm going to mark each end of this thing. I'm going to park the camera right about halfway between the joint, and I'm using pink fluorescent paint. This will be out in the front yard area. Alrighty, so we'll see a pink X marking here. We're about, and the line actually cuts out of the house a little bit off center to the right, closer to the right side portion of the house. Anyhow, we're about 9 foot. I'm getting between 9'6" and 9'8" deep here. That's down there quite a ways. Luckily, it's just under grass and dirt. Alright, that starts back here right at the very tail end of the ABS. So about 26 feet to 32 feet. I do recommend a spot repair here to correct that. If not repaired, I would certainly be rescoping, especially at this household. Right now, I don't know if it's a terribly large house. As this changes hands, if it's, the occupancy level goes up considerably, I would rescope this line about nine months to a year into being here. Right now, it's clean enough; it doesn't even need cleaning. But you do want to rescope. Every household lives very different from one another. Living habits change. Some people are at the office 12 hours a day. Some people are at the home all day and use the toilets and stuff much more frequently. So, and if you have a lot more people in here, you will or should expect you're going to see a difference in buildup in the line. This is surprisingly clean considering what's going on here, especially with the offset up there. So, big thing is if it doesn't get corrected is treating the line. What I tell most people when you have any kind of scenario like this, treat the line like a septic system. Folded toilet paper only, no wipes, no flushable wipes. Flushable wipes are just as bad as paper towels. You want to keep it to stuff that easily breaks down and disintegrates. That helps to mitigate buildup. But at that about 9 month to a year mark, that's going to give you a baseline for how the line's handling your living habits. And if you choose to do so, you could potentially handle this by periodic hydrojetting. Again, that still doesn't, right now it's hard to tell if that joint is exposed to the ground or not. Where most of the issue is in the flow line where water moves through the line all the time, which can easily wash away any dirt evidence, earthworms crawling around, things like that. That's what makes it tricky to discern. So jetting will help keep buildup at a minimum if you do it periodically, but that's not going to structurally correct that joint that could potentially be open to the ground. Okay, this one not located here. I do recommend relocating before digging. My locates, as far as the positioning goes, should be fairly on. I'm getting a little bit of some wonkiness as far as depth goes. I'm getting 8 feet deep here. I was getting between 7'10" and 8 feet. And then at the end of that section there, I was getting about 9'7". And the line is running flat, the yard's flat, so I'm not sure why there's the difference there in the depth. There could be something going on there that's... Anyway, relocate before doing any digging or dig with caution. This joint here also pulled apart to some extent. As I go out there, I'm going to adjust that marking. This joint here looks relatively secure, but it's fairly separated. It looks like it may have been affixed in place that way, but when that piece of pipe up there settled, I think it pulled on this joint. And if you're already down there, there's no reason not to extend that trench another couple feet and deal with this joint as well. This is only sitting about 2 feet away from that spot. It starts to get pretty darn close to a foundation window well where that's located. Very minor standing water right here. That's so minor it's not going on my report. That's all about a 2-foot section of pipe there with maybe a 1/4 inch of water. That's not the kind of belly we're looking for. A belly of that size, to block and back that up, it would have everything to do with how the homeowner treated the line. The only thing you can expect to build up in a belly that small on a consistent basis if you're dumping a ton of cooking oil and grease down the line, and or flushing huge wads of improper stuff that's going to block and stop and break loose the whole entire way down line. So I recommend there from about 24 feet to 42 feet be corrected. That's to deal with the belly in the line. You have close to 1 inch of standing water. It's not quite 1 inch. The bigger concern is the offset joint, and that joint being compromised and potentially open to the ground. I think there's a very good chance of it, just considering how much that joint has been torqued. So anyway, and use caution when digging here. I highly recommend relocating if you can to double check depth there. It's kind of weird to get almost a 2-foot difference in depth when the pipe is running flat and the ground itself, the yard, is also flat too. There's no slope to it or anything. And then highly recommend you rescope the line after the line is repaired, and you want to do that when the trench is closed. Especially in this scenario, you've got anywhere from 8 to 10 feet of earth sitting on top of this thing. This is when bellies happen, and when you scope that, that line right there, for instance, probably looked perfect when the trench was open. It's not until you put all that weight on top of it that shifting and settling occurs. So make sure you do a resoap with the trench closed so you can get an accurate look at everything. Otherwise, what you're looking at is in theory. Otherwise, the rest of the line here is in good shape, has good flow, and is functioning properly at this time.